You're listening to Three's a Crowd, the North East Footy Podcast, with Rye for Borough, Steve for Newcastle United, and Ted for Sunderland.
Good morning, welcome to Three's a Crowd, the North East Football Podcast. No Rye this morning, he is visiting relatives who have been obviously devastated, I guess, by the impact of what happened, the tragedy that happened at Bondi Beach. Thankfully, nobody who was connected to Rye was involved, but it's still a shock, even if you're from that area or you're in that area. So our thoughts with Rye, and let's hope him and his family have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. But can't get away with this any longer. Newcastle United travel to the Stadium of Light, and Sunderland won probably one of the most boring, turgid derbies I have ever been to in my history as a Newcastle fan. I have been to defeats that have been better, where Newcastle have shown more spunk, more effort, more commitment. We were bloody awful. But Sunderland, listen, they were there, they turned up, they won the game 1-0. Unbelievably, Voltemada becoming the hero for Sunderland on the day. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong, and best thing about the day for me, getting in and getting out without any trouble. Because believe you me, the way that Sunderland set that up, it could have been a disaster. But we're more of that later. Let's concentrate on the football first. Well done, Ted. You've won the first derby of the season. What was your feelings after that? I would imagine euphoria.
Obviously, I mean, you know, it's something that comes up. It's on the horizon. As soon as that fixture list is out, you're looking at it going, right, this is the first big test. And it is a big game. You know, I know there's a lot of Newcastle fans kind of since the defeat have tried to play the importance of the game down. When Alan Shearer is saying it's the biggest game of the season, I think you've kind of got to listen to the guy. So in terms of you know, where it puts us in terms of Premier League stature, it doesn't alter a massive amount. It was a battling performance. I think you nailed it. It wasn't a classic derby by any means. I think in terms of defensive strategy, I think we're held firm. I think Regis set us up to be just very difficult to beat. And sometimes you have to play dirty like that. Not to say we played dirty. I mean, there was some tasty challenges went in all the same, but nothing that I would say was over the top. Maybe Dan Burn might disagree with that one ever so slightly if he can get his breath back. But yeah, listen, it was a battling performance, and that's what we expected. I think we've played better against better teams. I think the performance against Arsenal, we played actual good football. You know, scored a couple of goals and put pressure on them. I don't think we created enough, but we didn't have to at the same time, because I was stunned, to be honest, at how Newcastle didn't get started, Steve. Every time I've seen Newcastle come to the Stadium of Light, in the first 15 to 20 minutes, they're out the blocks and they're at us, you know, and they almost play it like a home game, the way they've done it historically. Now, it doesn't always work out in Premier League games, don't get us wrong, you know, the record speaks for itself, but I was just really surprised at how flat they were. The midfield in particular, I thought, the one player who I highlighted, and I was sat next to Geordie Charlie when we were watching the game, a black and white and a red and white sat together. It was probably not the greatest idea. But, you know, talking there and saying Tonali was the danger man for me. And I'm begrudgingly kind of looking forward to watching him play, but it just seemed to be missing, Steve. I was just so surprised at how many of the players didn't turn up. Yeah. I don't think Eddie got his. I don't think I saw your comments and I saw your video about it, and I couldn't agree more. I think Eddie got it wrong. I think the wingers were more than comfortably dealt with by our fullbacks. Elanga, I know you've said already that he hasn't had the best start to his Newcastle career, and yeah, I agree, mate. He's going to have to really, book his ideas up in the second half of the season, because that was dire. I'm used to seeing Newcastle coming at us, and I don't know whether we were a bit taken back and a bit timid, kind of expecting more from it. It was maybe a little bit of a chess game between the two sides, but listen, I mean, obviously overjoyed with the performance, with the result, not the performance. Getting the win is massive for us. It's right before AFCON, and losing all those players. It's not the end of the season by any means. There's a few, I've seen the comments like sort of, oh well, it's the Mackems Cup final and all that kind of thing. Yeah, that's there to be levelled at us. We haven't been in the Premier League for a long time. It was a big result for us. Will it be a season-defining one? No. I think there's plenty more to come. We've got another derby at St James's, which really takes on a whole different tone now in March. I think there's because there will be a massive expectation placed on Newcastle to deliver a performance that they didn't for their fans at the weekend. Sunderland defensively, I thought Xhaka was absolutely incredible. The way he just motivated and communicated to the team the whole time. Like you say, not a classic footballing performance, but full of graft and full of workmanship, and that's what I loved. The biggest highlight for me, though, was my great nephew giving it the fake handshake to Anthony Gordon as he walked past, which I just thought was just one of the best bits of shithousery I've seen on a football pitch in a long time. On Charlie, lad. Do you know what it is? He actually told the family all week he was going to do that. And he actually carried it out as well. I was stunned. He's a lovely kid. He just doesn't like Anthony Gordon. He was more than respectful to everyone else.
Unbelievable. I mean, I
wonder where he gets it from, Steve.
I can't disagree with you on Tonali. I mean, there was nobody really came out of the game with any credit. Lewis Miley was neat and tidy, and probably the only one I think in that midfield who came out with any kind of credit. But it was awful. We just didn't turn up, and I don't understand why. I genuinely don't. And your little quip about Dan Burn. I mean, it was an awful injury for him to sustain, but Dan Burn really, he saw that late, and he decided, I might get hurt here, but I'm going to go and try and win that ball. It wasn't a foul. All this rubbish about retrospective decisions and all that. Eddie, even Eddie said afterwards he went for the ball, and it was just one of them things that happens in football. But a horrendous injury to sustain. I think if that injury doesn't happen to Dan Burn, Newcastle don't lose the game. I think Newcastle ends up a boring 0-0, because unfortunately that is where Dan Burn would have been for that header. And it's Voltemade who's in there instead. And Voltemade ends up heading it past his own goalkeeper, which, these things happen in games and these things happen in football. And it took something like that to separate the two teams. I'd agree with you about Xhaka. I mean, Granit Xhaka was definitely the player that I was going to, I was building up for Sunderland. I felt he would have a say in some part of the game. He definitely was your star player, I think. Your fullbacks might as well have had a day off though, because our wingers let us down massively. And the first half was like, it was awful. He went for that team that had beaten Everton 4-1. It just didn't have the same effect. And Gordon and Elanga just refusing to push forward and beat the man, not coming back and defending on a regular basis. It's inexcusable, and they don't realise how important that game is, clearly, because that game, some people playing it down in our fan base, but it's local bragging rights. It's the first one for best part of a decade in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. It's a huge game, and to lose it is devastating. It's not a nice feeling, and Newcastle fans have had to suffer the indignity of that for the whole week, and we'll have to suffer that until March next year. But you're right, we've got an opportunity to put it right then. That game, of course, if Newcastle are going to buck their ideas up and manage to navigate their way past Manchester City, of course, would be in the Carabao Cup final, and would be, it would mean that game would get put off till later in the season. But look, it's not the be all and end all. It's not season defining for either team. It's not, the next derby is the most important one, and that's the way it works out. For now, you've got the bragging rights, and you can sit back and enjoy it. But it was. Yeah, I don't think it was a great advert for North East football either. I think, and I'll reiterate what I said on my video. I do feel that Eddie got it wrong. Eddie picked the wrong team, and I don't understand why he did that. I think Harvey Barnes, he's a goal scorer, and he gets forward and he gets back. Murphy is by far our best, right-sided midfielder at the moment. Elanga doesn't come close. And I think that, on that particular day, Hall and Livramento, with those two in front of them starting that game, it would have been a completely different game. But Eddie got it wrong. Wissa had only played a matter of moments in a couple of games, but wasn't it worth dropping a surprise on Sunderland and bunging Wissa on? And then when Newcastle went 1-0 down, why go like for like and bring Wissa on for Voldemara? Was it to protect Voldemara?
Another one on.
That goal, stick another one on, go 2 up front. That was the time to do it. When you're 1-0 down in a local derby with 20 minutes left on the clock, stick 2 up front. Go for it. Yeah. Go for the result. So I don't understand that. Bruno did give it his best shot, and I mean, argy-bargy at the end again. There was lots of stuff on social media, people talking about, retrospective this and retrospective that, and let's let Bruno could be suspended. Rubbish, man. That was handbags. No. I mean, we've seen worse. We've seen worse in derby games, haven't we, Ted?
Yeah. Oh God, yes. And I disagree with any sort of retrospective action there. I would much rather see, if I was a Newcastle United fan, I would much rather see Bruno actually giving it a little bit. The only thing I was a little bit disappointed in Bruno was his complaint about Trey Hume's tackle, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. But that's each to their own. It probably looked worse from his angle. But yeah, listen, you're going to get you've got to have a bit of needle in a derby. What I'd be asking as a Newcastle United fan is, well, where was that for the 90 minutes before?
Yeah,
that's where it should have been. And I don't think there was enough. When I joined you for a couple of minutes on the Three Amigos show, I was kind of predicting what I called a blood and snot battle in midfield, and I don't think we got that. I really don't think we got like a full on scrap like we thought we were going to get. It just seemed a bit, a little bit damp. Like I said, Newcastle didn't get started, and we were clearly quite taken back by the fact that they didn't as well. But like I say, it's fantastic result at the end of the day. We all go home happy with that, we move on. But I just think when it comes to that one in March or whenever it does get played, obviously if you do get past Man City in the Cup, then I think that takes on a totally different tone, Steve, because it's by then we'll know what we're actually playing for at the end of the season as well. We're still not safe in the Premier League, but are we going to be mid-table? Are we going to be keeping one eye on maybe one of the Europa Cup spots? So by then we will know what that's about, and I think that derby takes on a whole different atmosphere altogether.
It'll take on a different tone as well, because behind the scenes, Newcastle United weren't happy with some of the shithousery, is the way to describe it. I think that was going on by Sunderland Football Club. I mean, some of it was blatant. The name was removed, the badge was removed, and they put visitors.
Yes.
Obviously, we understand why, and because in the FA Cup game, of course, Newcastle did that infamous photograph in front of their 6,000 supporters because they'd beaten their local rivals. So I always felt that if Sunderland won the game, that they would do that, they would return the favour. I always felt that was something that would come back and bite us on the backside. But the visitors thing, is that taking it too far? I mean, it's Newcastle United, it's a Premier League club, it's your local rivals. Yeah, the photograph deserved what it got, which was like a reversal of it, and they couldn't take the photographs in front of us because we were too far up. But what they decided to take that photograph. But is it going too far? Or did you, I mean, Newcastle weren't happy about that. And by the sounds of it, I haven't had clarification, but there were a few other things that weren't done to like Premier League approval kind of thing, that the way that Newcastle United would have liked. And I think it was all done to try and unsettle them, which is
I think there was definitely some mind games going on, without a doubt. I mean, I think the whole visitors thing, I mean, I had a little chuckle about it because I think it was kind of to try and address that balance of, let's be honest, the previous commercial directorship absolutely rolled the red carpet out for Newcastle United. The bar was being decorated, all the free gifts, all that kind of thing. I think that was more. I don't think it was done more to upset Newcastle United fans or the club, because ultimately they're a very well-established Premier League club who play in Europe, and I'll get shot by Sunderland fans for saying this. They deserve a bit of respect for what they've done in the last few years. Having said that, I think it was more for the Sunderland fans and our ownership saying we're addressing that balance. What happened in that cup game was wrong. Here's our chance to put it right. I even thought the T4 with a black cat, sharpening the claws towards the magpie. I thought the display was absolutely incredible. I thought it was excellent. Really, really good. We'll get pelters from Newcastle fans saying, "Oh, you've treated it like a cup final." Well, why not? It's been a long time coming in the Premier League. I don't think it was out of malicious intent, Steve, in terms of the visitors thing. Now, I think it was more for our fans to kind of try and put some of the wrongs right, because that game in the FA Cup was just a non-starter. We played awful. We had an awful manager. We didn't have a good squad. We were mid to low table in the Championship at the time. Now it's a different story, and I think it was just an attempt to address the balance a little bit. Of course, everything I've seen since about Visitors International Airport and everything else has been absolute shithousery, but
yeah, quite a bit of that. I mean, a lot of people were saying that Newcastle fans were, weren't singing. I've seen a lot of our fans in fighting saying that it's corporates and there's visiting fans and all of these people who don't know how to sing, etc. That was the reason. But I tell you the reason that the atmosphere wasn't as good, and it's because we were now in the same kind of position as Sunderland fans are when they come to St James's Park. We were up a height, we were out of the way, we weren't at the pitch side. That affected the atmosphere for me. Sunderland fans, obviously at the start, as you've already mentioned, that the display and all the bloody flares going off, etc. It was designed to intimidate and create this big atmosphere, and it did, but. Atmosphere was poor, but I just think it was because where Newcastle fans are located now in the stadium, it doesn't help. It doesn't help at all, and that's a bonus because they can't. It did nullify our support. I didn't feel we supported our team, but I mean, obviously the football on offer was dire. There was lack of effort, and it spread on the terraces. But
you didn't get a lot of value for it. Like
no, relocation of supporters definitely had its effect. I think, Ted.
Yeah. I would agree with that, mate. It's and it was done. Obviously, it's not just been done for Newcastle United. That was a change that was made a good few seasons ago now. Yeah. And I think it has made a difference. And of course, because of safety reasons as well, having those fans actually set back so they're not even at the front of that top tier, for safety reasons, they've got that little bit of space in between. And it does detach them a little bit. I mean, I remember I was there for Shearer's last game when you won 4-1 at the Stadium of Light. And I just remember that full end being full of black and whites. And for me, probably a better atmosphere because of the banter and the infighting between the two sets of fans. It does create a more raucous atmosphere, but at the same time, we've got to use these these little mental edges where we can find them. But we're not a club that's got unlimited funds that can go toe to toe with Newcastle United in terms of the players. We're still a good way off signing a £70 million striker. That's why we borrowed yours.
I've got to say, I mean, for me, the one downside of my trip to the Stadium of Light, other than the football, was the access into the ground. And they'd spent, Newcastle had obviously, got the buses. It was a fiver to get on the bus to get down there. We pulled into the car park, no issues at all. There was a lot of stop starting on the motorway, but we still got there. For those who wanted to drink, we still got there in more than enough time. But I mean, it was an hour and 20 minutes to go before kickoff when the majority of the buses arrived. We were brought in convoy, but access into the ground at particular part of the stadium, you have to go into a certain block of turnstiles, and it's adjacent to the queue of home supporters going in. Now, normally that wouldn't be an issue, but I don't think that is conducive to sensible policing on a derby. I've got to be perfectly honest, because there is a minority in both sets of supporters who would like to have a go at each other, and there's also innocent people who can be affected. And look, I didn't see any trouble as such. I saw a lot of gesticulating, a lot of voices being heard in a particular way to people. But I did see some older people, and I'm talking about people in their 70s and over, and some younger people under 18 who were visibly terrified of what they were being exploited to. For somebody like me at 53, I've seen it. I've been there, seen it, and I've that's the kind of thing I expected a derby match. But it's not a criticism of Sunderland fans, and it's not a criticism of Newcastle fans who were involved in it backwards and forwards. But it just takes one little thing to happen, and that could be a disaster. And I think it needs looking at for the next derby, because I'm not being funny. It really is like it's something which those people didn't expect to walk into, and they were visibly concerned. I wouldn't say terrified, but they were visibly concerned, and it can cause an issue. So I do think that needs looking at, because, as I said, that you spend all this money on bubbles in the past, and now millions of pounds on Northumbria Police being there to do what they do and do well. But there was nobody in between those supporters apart from a metal barrier, and it was really starting to get daft. By the time the stewards got there, and we're talking about stewards who are on, the average wage, who aren't going to put their neck on the line if it all kicks off. It was not far away from kicking off, Ted, and that was a big concern for me.
I heard from other sources as well, similar to what you've described there, Steve. And I'm not one of these I'm not a police basher by any means. I've got friends who are in the police force, albeit not Northumbria, but we had a bubble system that worked in that FA Cup game that I can't understand why it wasn't deployed again, because it worked. There was 6,500 fans you brought that day. In total, around the Stadium of Light on that day, there was 6 or 7 arrests, and they were all outside the ground and away from the match. So it works. What happened last weekend just smacked of policing on a budget. It was just insane that it was allowed to go like that, because it just takes one idiot to throw a bottle and that all kicks off, mate. And when I had family there, you had friends and family there as well. You are concerned about their health and safety. Of course they are. It can just kick off. It's a very, very high emotional event for the Northeast. It's the biggest sporting event in the Northeast, hands down. So it's always got that edge of tension to it, and I just think the bubble was a more than adequate solution. I think everybody was sorted from the Newcastle end. Proof that you could get 6,500 people there into the stadium without any issues whatsoever. So for me, why that wasn't deployed again, I spoke about it, when the whole thing was announced, Steve. And I'm in disbelief about it, because you want fans from both sides to get to the match safely and get home safely, and not have that edge of being scared, which is what the older people and younger people will see. That's for some of them, that's their first taste of a derby, and it's just edge. It's like back to the old 70s and 80s kind of feel, So I think Northumbria Police need to have another think about that and look at the bubble system for the game at St James's, because, like you say, and I wholeheartedly agree, mate, there's a core of idiots on both sides who will look to cause bother, and if they can find those little loopholes and little ways in to get at the opposition fans, they will do. So it's Yeah, it needs looking at, and I'm praying and hoping that Northumbria Police have kind of taken stock that while there wasn't much in the way of arrests and bother from all accounts, that's great, but if you're performing a risk assessment on that,
yeah,
I think it needs looking at, Steve, because I wouldn't have been too happy myself with that.
Yeah, I think they got away with it.
I'm too old and I'm too pretty for fighting.
Okay, a slightly shorter show because Ted's at work, but we do have time for a few of these. We'll get this one out the way first. Oh, yeah.
He's had some grief, this kid.
Unbelievable, but yeah, listen, you can understand it. It's all a bit of fun. You've just got to accept it, lads and lasses from the tune. These things happen. We've got a cry for help here on a lamppost this week. Lost a colostomy bag. It was last seen in the ball pit at McDonald's. If anybody can be kind enough to let us know if they do find that. And I know we're a good advert for glasses. It's a wonder we've never had any kind of contact from Vision Express, but I might need a new pair, mate, because exactly, yes, you need a new pair of glasses as well. I think we definitely don't need a new pair of glasses for this one. A cat within a cat, Ted.
Oh wow, that's amazing! I love that.
Very good. That, yeah, excellent. And of course, ice creams are things for the summer, but this woman...
Oh, she looks fab.
Hey! Exactly. I did like this as well. You've got to be careful when you put little announcements in newspapers. We'll read the top one first and then the bottom. Congratulations, George Brownridge, for pleasing 15 women for an entire day. We were all exhausted and very satisfied, and we look forward to next year. We all thank you. There had to be an apology that went into George Brownridge the following week. Our intentions were to thank him for a generous holiday shopping trip, which he arranged. The annual tradition is much appreciated. Any inappropriate innuendos were unintentional, and we take full responsibility for the ad that appeared in the papers. Absolutely brilliant. Haaland is doing well, of course, in the Premier League, but Erling Haaland's cousin, Albert Braut Haaland, plays with Norwegian Brann, 37 matches, 64 goals, and he's 18 years of age. Excellent. What would you dress up as in the pantomime this year? If you're in Newcastle, well, Ian Richardson says, when his son gets cast as a rat in his school play, there's only one costume to wear. Well done, son. Well done. Our man Ted's been at it again. Philby Lights Premier League table lamps, €35 each. Order by Wednesday for Christmas delivery. You can see there's a Chelsea one, there's a Spurs one, an Arsenal one, a Leeds one, which Tedrick came out with. Does the Leeds one fall apart in March? Absolutely brilliant.
Genuine question. Genuine question.
Genuine question. And a genuine question from this lady when she was driving the car. The car's not starting. She said, dashboard shows the sign of a person sitting on a toilet.
Oh, God.
Keeping on the drive
like that, it is frozen.
Keeping on the driving theme, you've got to feel sorry for the Fulham bus driver this week as he was coming out of St James's Park. He crashed into a stationary van as he was coming out of St James's Park. So the Fulham lads, a slight delay on their trip home after their defeat in the quarter-final. Luke Little has been getting a bit of stick as well. Ryan Cross said, Luke Little are in hospitality last night with more free tickets. Another middle finger to all fans who struggle to get tickets while they roll out the red carpets to athletes like this.
Athletes is doing a bit of lifting there, like, isn't it?
It is. And if you're thinking about a Christmas gift for Rye, Ted, here's the ideal thing for him. Name that bumhole. 55 animal bums, trivias and facts. But this man being a wildlife expert, I'm sure he'd be able to identify most of them. Wouldn't take him long to solve all of that. Let's have a few Christmas ones to finish the cat off this year. What do you call a Christmas wreath made of $100 bills? Aretha Franklin's.
Oh, very good.
And the last Christmas party, I don't give a shit who didn't have Christmas pudding. It's still £20 ahead. And Roy Wood, change your lyrics. The snowman doesn't bring the snow, as you festively croon. Snow conditions create enough frozen precipitation particles to craft a snowman. Get your facts right, you bearded glam rock lad. And don't worry, I've heard we're getting blankets for Christmas, said these two cold pigs.
They are in my house.
A lookalike here, Fresh Prince of Bethlehem. And this Christmas, please spare a thought for thousands of dwarfs who are struggling to put food on the table. Last one for this year. Just a reminder, lads, to stand well back from the oven door when you're checking the turkey.
Jesus.
If you've got any
That's
more
some
tweets,
fringe, that.
NUFC Matters 1892@gmail.com, or send it to one of the lads on social media. We'll pick them up and feature them on the next show. Okay, just time to look ahead to the fixtures. Before we do, I just want to say, from my perspective, I'm delighted to be in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup again. A difficult draw against Manchester City, of course. Preferred to have the away leg first and then play them at home, but that's not the way it's going to be if we're going to get to the Carabao Cup final again this season. It is a tough ask, but well done to the lads. Delighted for them to overcome the derby disappointment with, a win. A win was important. There were some pluses. There were some negatives. I think the plus points were for us, that we managed to get through the game with a patched up defence. I think that was a big thing, and that's going to be the story of the next couple of weeks, unfortunately, as well. No Dan Burn, out for six weeks. Trippier, of course, and Kraft not available until January. We've now lost Tino Livramento, thankfully not with a serious knee injury, with a knock, which is to the injury that he's already had treatment on this season, which means he will be out probably until January as well. Which meant that Lewis Miley, who was becoming the Steve Watson of the Naughties team, jumped into right back, and after half a session the day before, learning how to play right back, he went in and looked as if he'd played there all of his career, which is great. Also a fleeting appearance for young Alex Murphy. Talked about him a lot. We call him young Alex Murphy. He's actually older than Lewis Hall and Lewis Miley. He's 21. His only experience really is going out on loan to a League One team, but he's come in. A lot of fans saying maybe time to give him a chance. If you're good enough, you're old enough. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, listen, there was a lot of positives. For me, we won. We're in the semi-finals, and we'll park that now until next year. We've now got to focus on trying to get our act together home and away, and it's going to be difficult because our away fixtures now, for the rest of the season, are against a lot of the the teams above us. A lot of the top six still got to play the likes of Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool away from home. It's not going to be easy, but Eddie Howe's teams have certainly proved in the past that they can rise to the occasion. We've just got to hope that we can do that. But let's focus first on the matches today. Sunderland have got a long trip to Brighton. A lot of the Sunderland fans have already arrived there. 3:00 kickoff, of course. It's always a long, tiring trip. This for anybody, to be fair. But yeah, Brighton. Funny, it's because you feel like you're talking about everybody in the Premier League at the moment. They haven't found that consistency. They haven't found that level of consistency that we're used to seeing from Brighton.
Yeah,
Brighton, like Newcastle, been flirting with the European positions for the last few seasons since they both came up together. But this really is a 10th against 8th, Sunderland 26th, Sunderland 23 points. Brighton will want to win this game to keep in with the runners and riders. Like Newcastle should have wanted to win the game last week, but this is a difficult game, I think, for Sunderland. I think it's a big one. What's your feelings about this one, mate? The trip to the South Coast.
It's a huge test because obviously the majority of the AFCON lads have now gone. So we're without the likes of Siddiqui, we're without the likes of Reinildo, and that's going to have an impact. All right, we have people to step in. Habib Diarra will actually be in the squad today, which for the first time since pretty much the beginning of the season. He had to have groin surgery. He's now back in contention again, so he'll have this game before he goes off to AFCON. So there will be a change around in terms of the playing staff today, Steve. And yeah, listen, any kind of result down at Brighton today is a massive one for us, because we've got to survive these 2 or 3 games before any kind of reinforcements come in. We've sort of got on decent knowledge that Guendouzi will be signing pretty much as soon as the transfer window opens. That's at least the rumor anyway, that it's a pretty much done deal. So that shows up the midfield a little bit. But yeah, listen, we've got to try and smash and grab some points here. I think it'll be a case where whatever team Régis Le Bris can put out today, it'll be 5 at the back, and we'll just try and be horrible to break down. Because for all Brighton haven't, like you say, I agree that they haven't found their consistency this season. But you've got good experienced heads, the likes of Danny Welbeck, who we loved him when he was on loan at our place as a young lad, and he just seems to have matured into a really solid striker who can deliver when required. And we're just going to have to be really on our game with people like that, because they've got people who can cause you problems. Mitoma is another one who I really highly rate. I'm amazed he's still at Brighton, to be honest, because I think he's a terrific little player when he's on form. So yeah, it's a huge test, mate. I fear a little bit about this one. I hope there's no hangover after the derby, but with losing the quality and quantity of players that we have, it's going to be a tough ask. If we come away with a point today, Steve, I'll be absolutely over the moon. In terms of injuries, anything like that, it's as you were. I know we've got the likes of Dennis Serkin coming back, who've played a bit of time now. Romain Mundle is ready to start. Obviously, Simon Adingra didn't get a call up for the Ivory Coast, so that covers us on the right wing. I'm just a little bit concerned about what we've got cover-wise at the back, and that might just leave us a little bit susceptible. But let's see, because we've surprised plenty of teams so far this season. We're coming off the back of that. We looked at those December fixtures for Sunderland and thinking, oh my God, where are we going to get points from out of that? So, you're away at Liverpool, you're away at Man City, you're at home against the Geordies. To get 4 points out of those 3 games, I think we've had an absolute stroke of luck, to be honest with you. I think that's a great return on what we thought we would have got. So yeah, the lights at the end of the tunnel. We're getting into some of the more juicy games where we think we can get something out of it, but we've just got to go down there, and I think defend for our lives and just shut them out and try and take a point home, Steve.
Okay, what's your prediction for that game, mate?
I'm going to go for a ball draw, because I don't think we've had one yet this season. So yeah, let's have a 0-0.
Okay, I think Brighton will win this game. I think Brighton will win. I think it'll be a 2-0 win. I think your high was last week. I think you'll hit a low this week. It's going to be an interesting time to see how Le Bris copes without the AFCON players. That is going to be key, because these players are. These players, the players you've lost are key, and it'll be interesting to see what work is done with the players behind the scenes who haven't been featuring on a regular basis. But yeah, so I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Brighton. I'm not saying Sunderland runs over or Sunderland season's over, but I think today will be a bridge too far. I think they'll. Yeah. I think they will. I can see why you'd say that. Yeah, they will do that. Newcastle at home, early kick-off, 12:30 to Chelsea. This really is a funny game, because Newcastle have got a decent home record against Chelsea, but this is a different Chelsea again. You can play a different Chelsea every week. The amount of players they've got, of course, but the fact that Cole Palmer was rested during the week means that he will be playing today. He'll be in the squad and he'll be playing today. For me, it's very much a case of the same back four. It's whether he changes the goalkeeper. I don't think Ramsdale's done anything wrong. I think Ramsdale should start today. I don't think Pope should come straight back in. Whether that's the situation with Eddie, I don't know. But obviously we're missing Livramento, Trippier, Botman, Byrne, Kraft, Asula, Lascelles, all still out. Lewis Hall could return, which is a good bit of news today. Bruno Guimaraes has got to watch himself as well. He goes into this game with 4 Premier League bookings. If he gets one today or against Man United or Burnley, he'll get a 1-match suspension. Chelsea's team: Estevao, Levi Colwell, Liam Delap, Romeo Lavia, Dario Asugu are all injured, and Mudryk suspended. They won 2-0 as well over Everton, so they put that little blip behind them in the last Premier League game. Andy Madeley's the referee. We haven't had him this year, and Peter Banks is on VAR. For me, it's a tough game coming off the back of a tough week. But Newcastle should have enough to get something out of this game. But I am still, and I've predicted it all week, I'm still going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. I don't think Newcastle will have enough to win it. I do think we'll have enough to get something out of it. And I think a 1-1 draw then gives us a week to try and pull a few more out of the sick bays and back onto the pitch, and gives us an away trip to Manchester United, which of course is the only fixture on Boxing Day at 8 o'clock at night. But yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this match, Ted.
The one name that stands out among that is a player who probably for the last 2 seasons I've had the most enjoyment watching in the Premier League. Cole Palmer for me is probably England's best player right now. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful talent, and I think he might be able to cause problems for Newcastle's defence, albeit a makeshift defence as well. That being said, Chelsea are susceptible to leaking goals as well, mate. So I'm going to join you with a draw. I'm going to give the Geordies a bit more added value. I'm going to see a 2-2 draw for this one. I think it'll be a very entertaining game, mate.
Great stuff. Very much aware that you were at work, so we will draw the show to a close.
I've already had to wave somebody out going, no, don't come in.
We obviously won't be back next weekend because it is slap bang in the middle of the Christmas period, but the following weekend, I think we will be back with Three's a Crowd, which will be seeing in the new year. So around about the 2nd of January, I think we will be back on air. But all remains is to say happy Christmas to you, happy Christmas to Rye, and all the best to you and your respective families and everybody out there who follows us in the world of Three's a Crowd. Have a good one, mate.
Absolutely. Just a very quick one. A good morning to Jill Scott, who has probably been bullied into watching this podcast.
Morning, Jill.
Through to my sister, probably pouring pints down her neck in Sunderland last night. So, Jill, if you are watching, great to have you along. If you want to get on the podcast at any time, we're much more fun and much more accommodating than the Kino.
Take care. See you later.
See you later, buddy. Merry Christmas.
Same to you, pal.
Three's a Crowd podcast will return. That's not a threat, it's a promise.